What is up guys, Taiki here, and happy Memorial Day for those in the US. In this video, I'll be discussing scenario planning for 2022 and beyond, and what can history tell us about whether we should be allocated to Bitcoin relative to ETH or relative to altcoins, right? Like what kind of asset best performs at this time, and if you do want to bet on altcoins, like when is like the best time to do so, etc. And also talk about the weakness of the L1 narrative and like why I expect it to remain weak in the short term, but also why I expect it to come back in the future. And I can explain that through the reflexivity theory of crypto fundamentals. So let's get right into it. So none of this is financial advice, and yeah, let's get right into it. So like I mentioned, I think Bitcoin is likely to outperform in the near term. I think Bitcoin will outperform ETH, and ETH will outperform most altcoins. Historically, Bitcoin needs to show strength before new narratives can form. It can't just bottom. It has to bottom and then show strength. So I can explain this through multiple examples. And in terms of scenario planning, right? I think everyone's asking, like, is this going to be like a summer 2021 style bear market where we're just depressed for like 3 months and then we just resume the bull market, or are we in this long drawn out bear market? And obviously, it definitely feels like the first scenario is more likely. But like none of us have a crystal ball, and it's best to think about, okay, let's not assume anything. What was like the best coin to be allocated in these scenarios? And I'll show like why that's Bitcoin. So let's say like we're in this long drawn out bear market, and obviously Bitcoin bottomed December 2018, and ETH also bottomed December of 2018. Bitcoin bottomed, and then the rest of the market's bottom, right? And you would assume that from the absolute peak of bottom that ETH, the altcoin, would outperform. But if you look at the ETH to Bitcoin ratio, we see that in December 2018, right, this is where Bitcoin bottomed, right, when the rest of the markets bottomed. But the ETH BTC ratio only bottomed in the summer of 2019. And obviously this is like Uncle Ben, right? He's been talking about this all the time, and it seems like he's always saying this, but but he's been right. And to put it in more understandable practical terms, right? Like even if you bought the peak bottom of ETH USD in 2018, right, December 2018, Bitcoin still outperformed until Bitcoin was able to show strength, right? It's not enough to Bitcoin. It's not enough for Bitcoin to like just put in the bottom. It has to put in the bottom and show that the bull market is back on. It has to show obvious and tremendous strength in order for altcoins to outperform. So what if summer 2021, right? What if we're in the short bear market? And I've explained this example before, right? But I talked about Avalanche because I think Avalanche was the narrative that took us out of that bear market. Of course, like Luna outperformed, Solana outperformed, Phantom, Harmony, right? All those coins did well. But I think all those coins only did well because Avalanche was able to lead us out of the bear market through like the incentive program, right? And this is the Avalanche to Bitcoin ratio, and this bottomed July 28th. Okay, but Bitcoin actually bottomed on July 21st. And July 28th was at that point where it was like 7 or 8 green candles in a row where, Bitcoin outperformed the entire market. And once Bitcoin showed tremendous strength, right after it put in the bottom, only then altcoins were able to outperform, right? So like put it into more practical terms, even if you bought the peak bottom on Avalanche USD, Bitcoin still outperformed until the real bull market was back on, right? So Bitcoin has to bottom and put in tremendous strength, significant strength, in order for the altcoin markets to outperform Bitcoin. And I think most people buy altcoins because like they're bullish Bitcoin or ETH, but they think they can outperform Bitcoin or ETH. But I mean, obviously those are true, and I'm sure that if you have a 10-year time horizon and you believe that Solana is going to be like the second most popular blockchain, the ROI from today to 10 years from now, it's probably going to be better on Solana, right, than Bitcoin. But if you care more about short term and like having, best sleep adjusted returns and like not being too stressed, I think this, the cost of being wrong in Bitcoin is much lower than the cost of being wrong on altcoins, because it's impossible to predict what's going to be the next winner. And I think it's best to just sit tight, remain patient, and let Bitcoin show strength. And then when that happens, look at the market, look at the strong narratives at the time, and then, pick your battles there, right? That's kind of how I view things. And I don't like using the Bitcoin dominance chart. I think it's going to increasingly become a useless metric over time, just because this metric also includes stablecoins, and stablecoins is an up-only market, and Bitcoin dominance is going to be in a perpetual bear market. But in the short term, we can use what happened in the past to predict like what might happen in the future. In the summer of 2021, the Bitcoin dominance top was 49%, right, where the Bitcoin market cap was 49% of the entire crypto market cap. But the dominance top of 2019 and 2020 was roughly 70%. But also you should know that, the Bitcoin dominance should be in a perpetual bear market, and I don't really expect it to get to 70%, in the future. So my general heuristic is that I think Bitcoin dominance is going to top around 50 to 60%. It's going to be around 50%, right? Plus or minus a few percentage points if we're in the short bear market. And it's going to be roughly, 60% if we were in this long drawn out bear market, plus or minus a couple percentage points. Because, history tells us that, Bitcoin needs to bottom and put in strength before altcoins can outperform. And if altcoins are not outperforming, then, Bitcoin dominance will go up, right? Assuming that stablecoins aren't going parabolic. And let's kind of talk about Alt-L1 narratives, right? Because this was the hottest narrative of 2021, right? I primarily covered it in the channel. And, obviously the L1 narrative is weak right now, and I'll go over why. So this was 5 days ago, but Ethereum fees are really, really low right now, right? It's $2.54 per transaction, the lowest cost level since 2021. And if you think about why L1 narratives worked in the past, it was because Ethereum fees were high, right? There was a lot of demand for block space. A lot of people want to use DeFi, right, or NFTs, and Ethereum priced people out, so people looked for alternatives. But if you think about the market that we're in right now, there's not that much demand for block space, right? A lot of people left the markets. Some of them may never come back. Some of them will come back later. But the fact is, in the short term, there isn't that much demand for block space. And if we're in that phase, then you should expect less demand for cheap L1, fees, right? Alt-L1 narrative only works when ETH gas fees pick up in a sustained manner. And I don't really know when that's going to be, right? I don't have a crystal ball, but I don't really expect that to happen anytime soon. So, I don't really have that much exposure to L1s right now, other than Avalanche. I do want to pick up Solana exposure. And for those that care, I did take a hit on Near, but I will buy back Near in the future because I think Avalanche, Solana, and Near are the three L1s that I personally think are the most likely to survive and, put in all-time highs sometime in the future. But let's go over that later. Like I said, there's probably some good ROI opportunities if you if you're fully convinced that Solana is the future, right? Then yeah, buying Solana now is probably going to offer a better ROI than buying Bitcoin. But for me personally, I'd rather just not try to assume that I have the Giga Alpha to know what's going to happen in the future. Just focus my exposure into Bitcoin and Ether, right? Maybe some super tiny exposure in random altcoins. I don't really see a need to rush into them right now. I think it's going to be more obvious when the bull market is back on. It's going to be more obvious which L1 is going to outperform out of the bear market. Once more time passes, once there's more development, once the dust settles further. That's kind of the point. And this kind of ties into the next topic that I want to go over, and that's the reflexivity of crypto fundamentals. And reflexivity is a theory coined by George Soros, and he's essentially saying that efficient market hypothesis is not a thing. Reflexivity is a theory that positive feedback loops between expectations and economic fundamentals can cause price trends that substantially and persistently deviate from equilibrium prices. So, putting it in simple terms, markets are driven by humans, and humans get way too euphoric on the way up, and humans get way too bearish on the way down. So price tends to overshoot to the upside and also overshoot to the downside in general. And there's going to be a lot of lots of opportunities if you can identify, both deviations. And Avi Foman is someone I truly respect. He kind of puts it best, and I think this applies, right? This reflexivity theory applies a lot to DeFi, just because. If you think about DeFi, right, people use DeFi because of the yield, and most of the yield is paid out in volatile tokens, right? So on the way up, yield is higher, and the fundamentals of DeFi get much better, right? But on the way down, token goes down, and the yield goes down. So everyone's like, wait, is DeFi a scam? Why are we even using DeFi? But you can't really think that way, right? You can't just look at the current data, current metrics, and assume that's going to persist forever, right? You have to look at the overall trend. You have to look at development fundamentals, and that's where the most of the opportunities will lie. An example is the incentive program, right? When Avalanche Rush was announced, it was a $180 million incentive program because the price of Avalanche was $18. So when the price of Avalanche was $150, this incentive program was $1.5 billion, right? Super bullish, right? So as the price goes up, it becomes more and more bullish, right? Reflexivity theory. And similarly, Phantom, right? $370 million incentive program. At the top, I think Phantom was $320 or something. $1.2 billion, $1.1 billion incentive program, right? like whenever whatever narrative is like more bullish on the way up, like, this is like DeFi, right? I mean, it's super bullish on the way up, right? Because the size of the program is bigger, but on the way down, it's like, oh, like it's a scam, right? That's kind of like the general sentiment. But I think there's gonna be a lot of opportunities if you're able to see through that and, just keep interest in the crypto markets, look out for development, and, picking winners that number go up, fundamentals are better, number go down, fundamentals are worse. This separates signal from noise. And just keep doing research, keep looking at the fundamentals, development, and I think I keep saying the same thing, but it's early in the morning, so cut me some slack. Right, my bias is that currently, right, maintain most of my exposure into Bitcoin and Ether, right, and farming opportunities like GLP, Try Crypto, as a proxy for that while earning yield, and just remaining patient. And if the bull market does come back on, right, whenever that is, I think that I'll have an opportunity to rotate my Bitcoin or Ether into L1s or whatever altcoins that are hot right now. But I'm not going to assume that I know when that's going to happen, right? No one knows what's going to happen. I'm just going to remain patient, earn yield, and just sit comfy on my farms and whatnot. Same thing. And, it's easy to, I guess, be on social media and just be sad, right? Because, we have tweets like this from Ethereum maxis, and I don't hate on ETH maxis, right? I respect maxis, like whatever coin that they support, right? I think it takes guts to have that much conviction in one thing, and it's like a different type of mindset and ideology. But people, right, look at like the metrics right now. I'm using Avalanche as an example because I farm on Avalanche. I have some Avalanche, but this Eric is a ETH maxi, right? And he's saying that, like Avalanche is a scam. It's 85% from the top, and I feel bad for the investors and whatnot. But it's kind of weird because you could have said the same thing about ETH back 3-4 years ago, right? Bitcoin maxis were saying the same thing about ETH, right, back when it was down 90%, and now ETH maxis are saying the same thing about Avalanche, Solana, just because price is down. But obviously you can't really think that way. And the fundamentals, right, the data for Avalanche is not looking that great right now, right? The purple line is the transactions on the C chain, and the red one is DeFi Kingdoms, and the blue one is Crobata. And most of Crobata activity is bots, right? So it seems like the DeFi usage, I guess, right, DeFi/NFT usage is roughly here, back to, I guess, late 2021 levels. And you can easily look at this data and be Avalanche data is down, that was the top, and no one's ever going to use it again. But can you actually say that, right? Can you confidently say that the daily transaction volume isn't going to get to all-time highs, right? This is where the fundamental research comes in, right? This is where your faith, your research, your conviction lies, right? If you expect Avalanche transactions to get over 1 million in the future, then chances are Avalanche is at a discount right now. I just don't really see a need to it's YOLO all in Avalanche right now, but you can just look at this and be oh yeah, Avalanche is dead, right? That's the wrong mindset to have, right? But I think a lot of ETH maxis are going to use data like this, right? And just say that, L1s were a scam, right? Alternate L1s were a scam, right? Because even ETH maxis, right? It was not easy for them to hold Avalanche from the top of 2017, 2018 and hold it all the way down and remain, keep that conviction all the way through the bear market and also through the bull market, right? So, there's a lot of differing opinions right now on social media, right? People are upset, right? It's Twitter is everyone's angry, right? Everyone's angry on Twitter. But you got to block out the noise. You have to stick to your ideas, right? Don't listen to me. Don't listen to your 10 other crypto YouTubers. Just use us as a resource, but build your own convictions. Because none of us know what we're doing, to be honest. None of us know what's going to happen. We're just kind of guessing at this point. But we're just looking at history and then trying to make inferences about what might happen in the future, and I guess using some risk management tools to get us through this phase. And because if you think about it, back in April or May of last year, right? I didn't even know that much about Avalanche, right? I mean, no one really used Avalanche, right? In July 2021, the only thing that was there was Pangolin, right? Pangolin. So if you just looked at Avalanche in July 2021, it was Avalanche, no one's gonna use Avalanche because there's only Pangolin. You would have missed out on one of the strongest narratives out there. Similarly to let's say July of 2020, right? If you just looked at Solana back then and was oh yeah, no one's using Solana, right? What the hell is this? I'm not going to buy Solana, right? I'm going to be closed-minded. Then you would have missed out on like, you know, an 100x or like whatever the returns were. And even Cardano, right? Like every day, like no one uses Cardano, right? And which is true, right? Like no one does use Cardano. And you know, the metrics suck, right? But you can't just be like, no one will ever use ADA. And I meme about Cardano because it's part of crypto culture and it's kind of funny. But you know, I'm going to keep an open mind, right? Maybe in this bear market, they're actually going to like ship apps that work, right? That doesn't take like 5 days to transact, right? So you know, I'm gonna keep an open mind. And I think if you want to bet on L1s, you should bet on L1s that are well capitalized, right? So I talked about Solana, Near, and AVAX because they were able to raise like 9-figure rounds during the bull market, right? So they have fiat in their bank. You know, that's going to be able to, you know, pay themselves, sustain themselves. Other L1s that weren't able to raise money, right? If their treasury is mostly their own native token, then, you know, it's going to keep going down. And if they do sell to raise money, then the token will nuke. The community gets really upset. It's not a really good time, you know, for those projects, right? Not just L1s, but projects. So, you know, if you want to invest in anything, make sure that the team has a runway, right? At least a year, right? At least 2 years of runway. Because yeah, projects that weren't able to convert their coins into USDC or like whatever fiat, right? In the bull market, I think, you know, they're going to be in trouble. Yeah, they're going to be in trouble. Yeah. And yeah, the reflexivity theory, you know, obviously DeFi metrics are down. So it's normal to expect that, you know, all these L1s are never going to come back. But, you know, you have to do the research, right? Like, is it likely that Avalanche will get back to its all-time highs in terms of transactions? I think so, right? But I'm not going to bet on that right now, right? Same for Solana, same for Near, same for any other L1. I'm just going to remain patient. I think the alpha is going to be just tracking new applications, like the strength of the team, how much funding do they have, and the amount of developers working on each ecosystem, right? I think that's where most of, I guess, the alpha and conviction will lie, right? So last thing I want to go over is this Joseph Lubin tweet. And Joseph Lubin is the co-founder of Ethereum and the founder of Consensus. And he actually called the bottom in December 2018. And I'm only showing this not because like I'm like, you know, writing like Mr. Joe Lubin here, but also but mainly I'm going over this because I want to go over the comment section, because, you know, I'm not calling the bottom here, right? I don't think like, you know, we're gonna recover from here. I think it's more likely that, you know, we're gonna take way longer than the summer 2021 bear market to rise out from the ashes and whatnot. But I kind of want to go over like the sentiment of what people were feeling back then, and maybe you can kind of relate with how you're feeling right now. And the point is, like, no one knows when the bottom is, and like no one knows like what's going to happen. You know, we have the benefit of hindsight here, but like maybe this wasn't the bottom, right? And he would have looked dumb. But let's kind of look at the sentiment, right? So this guy, ETH is Zcoin. I have zero sympathy about ETH declining. Keck, right? Bear market hasn't done its job, as many 2016, 17 shitcoins haven't been capitulated, right? And Ethereum is the biggest shitcoin of them all. I think the bottom is yet to come. You know, I'll call the bottom when you capitulate. You know, yada, yada, yada. This will not age well. Fuck you, right? You're a scammer. Right? The only bottom is you, the ass who thinks he knows. Crypto has never experienced a true bear market in the overall economy. I don't think we can call bottom until we see a bottom in the stock market. We're in uncharted waters for crypto, right? I think this is like what everyone is saying, and obviously different conditions, right? I mean, like QT, QE, the Fed is hiking rates. The Fed is like, you know, pulling liquidity out. So, you know, you can make a viable argument for this. But this was also how people were feeling back then, because, you know, this was like near the taper tantrum when the Fed was trying to, you know, like hike. Do QT, and the markets did not like that at all. And I'll provide a link this in the description and whatnot. But I feel like there's a lot of parallels to like the average sentiment here, right? And the average reply guy on Twitter. And, you know, I think the biggest takeaway is that, you know, sure, you can sell your coins hoping to buy back lower, right? But, you know, is that the best strategy, right? Or is the best strategy to, you know, have some exposure, right, in the form of Bitcoin, maybe less in altcoins, and, you know, just continue to do research. Don't assume that you can call bottoms. Don't assume that you know like what's going to win out in the future, and just, you know, stick to the data and, you know, hedge in case the markets do go down, right? By having some cash, but also hedge in the case that this was the bottom, or this is the bottom, by having some exposure. I think that's the best way to navigate the markets. Obviously, I wish I can say that, that was the bottom and whatnot, but there's no way to know. But looking at threads like this, it makes me feel better about like where we are in the markets. And I'm never gonna like be all cash or something, right? I'm all like, I believe in this industry. I'm gonna continue to build videos. So I'm not gonna, whether this bear market lasts 3 months or like 12 months, I'll still be making videos. I'm sure my viewership is gonna go down significantly, but it's okay, right? It's okay. Hopefully I can help people get through this, and just try my best to at least like navigate the markets better, right? And I think I provide some interesting data points. Yeah, so thank you guys for watching, and happy Memorial Day, and see you guys later.